Welcome alumni and friends of UNB's Faculty of Management. My name is Michelle McNeil. I'm the Executive Director of the Associated Alumni, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you today. I'd like to acknowledge that we join you today from unceded and unsurrendered Wolastoqey territory. The river that runs by our campus is Wolastoq, along which live Wolastoqey, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. And we are so grateful to be joining you from this beautiful campus on this beautiful territory today. And wherever you're joining us from today, thank you, Waliwan. We're very excited to have you join us for this conversation about the Faculty of Management and where it's come over the last 50 years, things that have changed, things that have remained the same, and also a little bit about where we hope to bring it in the future. We're pleased to have three guests with us to have that conversation today. We have a faculty member, a student, recent graduate, and an alumna with us. So I'll start by introducing Dr. Dev Mitra, the Dean of Faculty of Management and a Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship. Dev joined the faculty in 1991. He has a PhD in Finance from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. He teaches corporate finance, entrepreneurial finance, and international financial management in both the BBA and MBA programs. In fact, he taught me when I was going through the programs there. I forgot to mention at the beginning, in addition to my role at UNB now, I have 2 degrees from the Faculty of Management, so it's a distinct pleasure to be doing this conversation today. Dev's research interests are entrepreneurial finance, such as venture capital and crowdfunding, financial institutions, governance, dividend policy, corporate capital structure, international capital budgeting, and financial markets. Prior to pursuing an academic career, Dev worked for Pricewaterhouse and for Indian Aluminum Company, then a subsidiary of Alcam Aluminum. And I hope I never have to say aluminum twice in a row in an event again. He also holds a fellow designation from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and he has been a visiting scholar and has taught at institutions in India, Indonesia, Poland, and Singapore. He is also the co-author of a textbook in corporate finance, now in its 7th edition, and is the Atlantic Chair for the Canadian Schools of Business Association of Canada. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dev.
Thank you, Bix.
And representing our alumni today, we are pleased to have Carol Loughrey join us. Carol graduated from UNB in 1970 with a BBA. She subsequently completed an MBA at the University of Maine and is a CA and a CPA. Her career included teaching in the faculty for 10 years, finishing as a tenured associate professor and assistant dean before leaving to become a deputy minister. She was president of the UNB Alumni Association and a member of the Board of Governors. She is a fellow of her professional organizations and received the Order of Canada, the Order of New Brunswick, the Queen's Gold and Silver Jubilee Medals, and was named a Paul Harris Fellow. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Carol.
My pleasure.
And representing our students today, we have a recent MBA graduate, Angelisa Daly. So Angelisa graduated this spring from UNB, and she has held many leadership roles as the president of the Graduate Management Student Society, and has been a student lead and a team lead for various projects within the university during her time with us. She's lived in Delhi, India for most of her life and has a bachelor's degree in commerce, after which she worked in an administrative role at McKinsey & Company in India. Angelisa came to Fredericton about 2 years ago, and this was her first international trip ever. We're looking forward to hearing a little bit about that experience. And she says that developing relationships, strong relationships, is a foundation for everything that she does, and she's looking forward to bringing that with her as she actively searches for growth and development opportunities now that she's graduated. Thank you, Angelisa, for being with us today. So now that we know each other a little bit better, I thought we'd get started with the conversation. And Carol, I'm wondering if you could start us off by just reflecting a little bit on your time as a student at UNB, and then a little bit about how you've stayed connected as an alumna over the years.
Well, it was a very different time. Obviously, 1966 I started. No, not very many women anywhere on campus, certainly not in the faculty. We had I think very good profs, but we got to see them often because there weren't very many of them. It was at that point a school of business versus a faculty of management, which it's evolved to. There was not much appreciation of being a woman. I actually had one prof tell me that there was no place in business for women and that he was going to do everything he could to make my life miserable. So that's the kind of atmosphere it was for a woman at the time. I was not familiar with being treated that way, so kind of ignored it, I guess. I think the wonderful thing about the program at that point is it really didn't thrust you into the business program. The first year, I think there might have been only one business course or two in the whole of the first year. You were mandated to take arts courses and science courses. My mentor, Harold Sharp, some of you will remember him, those of you who are in my class, really believed that business people should be well-rounded. Some of the other faculties in other universities just sort of put you right in the business the whole time. And I think that is probably, I don't know what you're doing now, but I will ask you later. But I think that was a very good thing. And we had one course that was sort of an overview course to start. And it was quite amazing. And at the end of this year, I recall, we were given a reading list for over the summer of 25 books in business, sort of popular books like Peter Drucker, people that were really leaders in business at the time. And of course, me being somewhat, how do you just say that politely? Anyway, I did read them all that summer, 25 books, and it was a wonderful base. It was a wonderful idea. I'm sure I was probably one of 2 or 3 out of the 100 in my class that actually did that. Anyway, I could go on, but I won't.
But then you've continued to stay involved as an alumna, so the experience must have been positive enough that you were happy to stay involved with the faculty in the university?
Well, I was asked to come teach. I was home looking after children, and Harold Sharp came to my house. And there was a real scarcity of people to teach accounting at the time, and I was a chartered accountant. So yes, I went back and I taught for 10 years, absolutely loved the teaching, really, really loved being with the students, and it was just a joy for me. I got kind of lured away to be a deputy minister. I was only going for 2 years. I stayed for 10. Yeah, I had good friends in the faculty, and there came to be eventually more women teaching besides me. And yeah, the problem with being a woman teaching at the time, though, in the university in general, I think, but certainly in the faculty, at that point in time, research was the only thing that counted, right? It didn't matter if you were a good teacher. It didn't count much. And it didn't matter if you did a whole lot of admin, but they always wanted to have a woman on the committee, right? So you know what that means? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so you were expected to sit on a lot more committees than your male counterparts. But I did love teaching. I even now see students and talk to them. It was a wonderful 10 years, I have to say. And then I was asked to go on the alumni, and in a moment of weakness, I agreed and became the president in the 100th year of the Alumni Association. We did a lot of really neat things in that year and brought a lot of women back. It had started to falter. It's very unusual for a university to have a separate women's group. I think McGill and UNB may be the only ones in Canada.
We are, yeah.
I was sort of swaying towards thinking, yeah, we really don't need to have one. And then I went on the board. And trust me, at that point, if there hadn't been the 2 representatives from the Alumni Association on the board, there would not have been a whole lot of women's voices around the table. So I came to realize that there was a role to play for the alumni. Things like making sure women got nominated for honorary degrees. We've nominated some amazing, amazing, amazing people for honorary degrees that would never, ever have been considered if we weren't there. So I came to realize that this was an important role within the university. Maybe at some point it won't be anymore, but it certainly still was when I did it.
So Angelisa, when you hear Carol reflect on that experience in the business faculty, and now just having graduated, are there any things that resonate with you there? Any things that you know are very different or still the same?
I'm so sorry to hear that experience when you said your professor told you.
Well, I subsequently became his assistant, by the way. My 3rd year, I became his assistant. Can you believe that? He changed his mind.
That is amazing, because that's one of my causes, like my eternal burning causes. And I did take up an independent study in my final year called Women in Leadership. And I had the privilege to kind of trace this, history of women throughout and read about feminism, waves of feminism, and it's lovely to hear your journey. And I completely am for the cause, and I think, yes, the faculty has changed. We have a lot of female professors. In fact, I was the president of MBA in my final semester, so I'm sure we have come a long way since then, and it's an absolute delight to be sharing the stage with you. Yeah.
I have to tell you, when I was at UNB teaching, I developed a speaking program called Women in Leadership, and I brought women in. The other thing was interesting is being, I think maybe only woman at one point, but one of few, is my colleagues all dressed like they were going to play golf or had just rolled out of bed, and that was quite acceptable for the men. But I felt I had a role to play, to dress like a person, like a woman would in the business world, because it was very difficult when I started articling as a CA student, being the only woman in my firm, to know what to wear. Because there was not, nowadays you can go to almost any store and get businesswoman-like clothes, but it was very, very difficult back then. I have a fond memory of a mauve pantsuit that just makes me cringe now. But I thought I had to, when I taught, the days I taught, I always dressed like I was going to work in a business as a businesswoman. So it was those kinds of little things I was able to do. I'm not sure I'd made a huge difference, but just those little nuances of mentoring that...
That's why that mentorship and sort of leading by example is so important, for sure.
Well, the alumni does the wonderful work with Renaissance College in terms of, I participated in that, of providing opportunities to experience interviews and so on.
Yeah, it's a great program. It really is. That's a good transition into my first question for Dev too, which is around how you involve, because our alumni get involved in the university in a number of ways. So are there ways within the faculty that you engage alumni and engage sort of our community partners in helping with the student experience?
Yes. Well, first, thank you so much for the kind introduction, Melissa, and you were a wonderful student. And it's also really wonderful to be here with fellow panelists, Carol and Angelisa.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was hearing Carol talk, she really played a trailblazing role, I guess, within the faculty, within the university. And it was also so nice to hear Angelisa talk about, how things have moved forward. We involve alumni in a very, 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 they are very important to the work of the faculty. And you'll probably be talking later about experiential learning. And what that is basically kind of involving the community, people who are in practice with kind of the courses so that students get a real solid sort of experience. And alumni play a very, very critical role in that. We have sort of reached out to alumni in various ways. We actually have been conducting alumni events in different parts of the country. Just before COVID hit, which was the university shut down in March, we had an event at the end of February in Toronto.
Yeah, it was just the week before, I think.
Exactly. And it was attended by about 80 people. And so we've been doing this for a few years. And not only that, we have tried to involve alumni in many of our experiential courses that is growing up. So just to give you an idea, this year we had about 500 students participating in these experiential programs, of whom and they were mentored by about 165 mentors, of whom 69 or 70 were our alumni.
Wow.
So that's a very, very strong connection. We feel that alumni will continue to play a big role, because what we find also is that as students sort of graduate, they also want to come back and give back. And I see that with Carol, and I'm sure I'll be seeing that with Angelisa as well. And that's, again, played this role where the students are sort of getting the benefit of our alumni.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that we see it sort of intuitively, but we also have data to back it up that our alumni tell us through our engagement surveys that the way that they want to come back and contribute back to UNB, but overwhelmingly they want to do it within their faculty. So it's really great that you guys have sort of opened up that opportunity for so many people to come back.
They are a very, very critical stakeholder for us.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. So we are going to talk about experiential education, and so our alumni are interested in hearing about it. We get questions about it from alumni when we're out talking to them. And can you just talk to us a little bit about how you've embedded experiential education into the curriculum? I know it's always been there, but it's been a real focus recently. So,
right. So, I guess I don't quite know about the coursework in the 70s because I kind of joined in 1991. But when I joined the faculty, we were kind of known for the breadth of our courses. I mean, we used to offer sort of majors and concentrations in almost all of the business disciplines, and also the depth of our courses. And at that time, experiential learning basically involved, for example, an active co-op program that we had in our undergraduate programs, and also internship opportunities for our graduate students. And some faculty members also taught with the case method, which was then considered to be experiential. But over time, we decided that we would actually embed project-based learning involving actual practitioners, perhaps senior practitioners from different professions, who would play a very critical role in the instruction also of our courses. And we started with, for example, the Student Investment Fund course, which is now, it started in 1998, so it's over 20 years old. And we very soon realized the benefits of a course like that, because essentially there was a strong involvement of then the New Brunswick Investment Management Corporation, the pension fund of the province. And there was also a strong tie with the professionals actually teaching in the course, providing guest speaking and so forth. And also taking the students to various events such as competitions, for tours of Bay Street, etc., which really sort of completely changed the dynamic in the faculty, because the students before that had not had that kind of experience. And so what we found over time is that the group of students who later became alumni were so loyal to this program because they found that their career paths, their trajectories had been shaped by this course. Yeah. And so then we started expanding on this kind of program. So we created an activator program in the entrepreneurship area involving 4 different courses. And one of our centers, the International Business and Entrepreneurship Center, created an APEX business plan competition, which was tied to the courses. In other words, the students had to create business plans while we were going through the courses, which had to then compete in APEX. So that again became a very successful program, spawning a lot of very successful alumni. And over time, we created other programs like the Export Partnering Program, etc. We then had a strategic planning exercise a few years ago, and we thought we really wanted to be known for experiential learning. And that's when we decided that we would embed experiential learning in all years of our undergraduate program. So what we did was we used to have an introduction to business course, which essentially in the first year introduced students to the basic concepts of accounting.
I think that's the one Carol was talking about.
So it was still there, was it?
So we decided to change that to what we call a business planning and entrepreneurship course. And this course basically tries to do the same thing, but this time involving the community, where students actually have to create business plans for a business or a non-profit. And that seems to have worked very well for us in the sense that we are getting a lot of community involvement in this course. Students are becoming more engaged right from the first year. Our retention rates have gone up a lot. So, and this is something we are following up with second year, required experiential learning. We hope to have a community leadership required course in the third year. And then, of course, we embed experiential learning in our capstone strategic management course in the fourth year. So I guess we really want to provide that experiential learning component to all our students in all of the different years. Now, one aspect of experiential learning is also students being able to participate in different competitions, because that enables them to get those networking opportunities. It enables them to kind of meet with, potential future employers and so forth. And what we find is that, at least anecdotally, I've heard from students that in many other universities, a lot of students do get those opportunities, but only a select group of them do.
Right.
And we want to provide that set of opportunities to all our students, and that's where we are hoping to make a difference.
Yeah, I know. So I started my my BBA at UNB in the late 90s, actually the first year that SIF was a program. And my reflection on it is that the projects that I did for businesses and not-for-profits, they were some of the most rich and engaging experiences that I had as a student. And so hearing that you would start with that right from the first year and make it available to everyone just seems like a really incredible advancement from even where it was in the late 90s, right?
Yeah, and actually one thinking there was that, like we used to think about the statistics about not all our students go on to continue the degree, right?
Yeah.
But we thought that even after first year, if they decided to drop out, they would be able to go to an organization and know how to create a business plan.
Yeah.
And that would be valuable for them.
Yeah, it's smart, and it's a smart transition from that intro to business course, right? Because they still need to know they're learning all the components from intro to business, but they're doing it in a really practical way.
In a practical way.
Yeah.
That's great.
It sounds absolutely fantastic. I just think it would have been so wonderful to have those kinds of things, because I know even just the having to speak to people, the interpersonal skills you would learn in doing something like that, and dealing with, bosses and dealing with other people. I just find that I came out of business terrified to speak in public, and I had stellar marks, but the first time I went to teach, what is that one? Is it 301, that big room?
Yeah.
Big
303,
room,
yeah.
big room. So I thought, the first time I taught, I wasn't in that room, the first term, and I had to sit down because my knees literally went out from under me. I had so little experience in public speaking. And I thought, second term, I thought, oh, I'm good now. I'm all right. I'm fine. And I walked into that room and I went, because it was absolutely full of students. And you walk in down at the bottom, right. Oh my goodness. But that would have been, to try to teach that to yourself as an adult, how to be comfortable in those kinds of environment, to be comfortable. What is it they say? The greatest human fear is, or the second greatest human fear is public speaking.
Yeah.
First is dying.
Right.
That's how. So I just think that's just a wonderful, wonderful thing that you're doing, to give students that kind of opportunity, because I think they get a little more than we got in sort of their schooling, their public schooling. But I still don't think they get, as you say, it's a select group that choose to get that experience versus everybody getting it.
Right. I'm so glad that you mentioned this, Carol, because I also used to have a real fear of public speaking, still do actually. But and this is something we recognize, and so what we have done is we have teamed up with Toastmasters, and they actually come into our programs, and it's been a pretty integral part of the MBA program. And we find that a lot of our students are really benefiting from it, because just the ability to stand up and speak extempore. That is a skill that is so valuable.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
I can still remember speaking to a group of 5,000 people and looking out over the group and thinking, this is when I was head of my professional association, thinking, this is a good-sized town in New Brunswick. But it really, I think it's just wonderful you're doing that. And that whole the Toastmasters, and I used to send, when I was provincial controller, I took somebody to speak at I had a lot of professional accountants working for me, and I took one of them to speak at cabinet on a subject that they were the expert in, right? And in the cabinet room, and oh my gosh, I just wanted to crawl through the floor. They were so awful. And so I actually had public speaking training to all my staff, and then I started putting them in the Dale Carnegie course, which is an amazing, if you haven't read Dale Carnegie books, if you get past the sexism of the 1940s, they're quite amazing. But I put them because they just had no capacity whatsoever, and they were people with business degrees and professional accounting degrees, and they had absolutely no capacity to present their case. And if you can't present your case, you can have the most wonderful product in the whole world, But if you cannot present your case in a clear and, valid way. I mean, I can still remember losing an argument at cabinet, and I thought, instead of coming away thinking they're a bunch of stupid idiots, I thought, I must not have presented it well because they've made a mistake. They've done the wrong thing. So I just think your students must come out just with incredible confidence to do those kinds of things. Yeah. Bravo to you.
That's exactly the word I was thinking when he was describing the business plan competitions and everything, was the confidence that you would be building in students from that. So I remember in a communications course, I believe it was Judy Roy who would have been teaching it. My husband and I met in university and we were in the course together, and it was a persuasive presentation that we had to do, and we had to choose this like really wild idea, but then come in and persuade people that it was right. And my husband was doing his on how man didn't land on the moon in the late 60s. That was his persuasive. And I remember thinking, how is this appropriate? But then later on realized why we were doing it, to your point, that you need to be able to make your case, right? When you're
to learn to do that when you're young. I took a training in public speaking when I was president of my professional organization, Toronto, and we had to do this little thing where we had to give a little speech before we went. We wrote the speech and we gave it. And this man from out west, he literally went, and then we did all these exercises where we beat at things with newspapers until there was newspaper and passionate about this, and really all of these exercises all day. And at the end, we had to give the same speech. So the rest of us were using our arms and we're, really getting into it. He stood up there and went, I thought, was he here today? But I think, maybe you just can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't know. You couldn't teach him. But it was amazing because I thought he was going to have a heart attack when he was talking about one thing that he was feeling passionate about.
Yeah.
I thought his face got all red and I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to drop dead right here. But even though he'd done all that, he could not translate all of that training he'd had all day because he'd never had to do those kinds of things ever in his life. Yeah. So to be able to do it when you're 18 or 19 is fabulous.
Yeah. One of the other recent changes that you've made in the faculty was the launch of the Masters in Quantitative Investment Management program. That's a very recent new program. I know we were very excited about it when it was launched. Can you tell us a bit about the program, and then maybe what kind of students we're recruiting as a result, and what you expect the long-term impacts to be?
So, this program is also another example of the relationships that we built with industry. Mm-hmm. This program came into being when one of our instructors, his name is John Spinney, he's the Chief Investment Officer of Westcor. And we realized that, a lot of the investment portfolio decisions that they make are now being based on skills that essentially three sets of skills. One, of course, is knowledge of investments, but also knowledge of coding. A lot of strong knowledge of coding is required. And then a strong quantitative background, because they have to sort of put together algorithms and create sort of models in order to be able to make those investment decisions. And we also realized that the trend of investment decisions by many, many investment houses was in these areas. Mm-hmm. So we thought that, there are so many other universities offering pure, just investment programs. And we wanted to do something different. So that's how we came up with this idea. And actually, we developed the program in partnership with some members of Westcor. Mm-hmm. The courses were developed that way, and then we decided to make it a one-year program, which we are now thinking will sort of expand it to perhaps 16 months or so, mm-hmm. create more specializations if we can. But we thought that, in any case, the trend in management education was towards more specialized programming, particularly at the graduate level. And we thought that this could be a nice way for us to start. So this was how we sort of, initially started the program. It was difficult because, there was the resource issue and also, trying to make sure that we were not sure how many students we would be getting. Yeah. So this program, we also, one other unique feature that we wanted to sort of embed in the program was that there was a capstone course element, which again was experiential. Mm-hmm. But it had a research component because a lot of the industry professionals need research for different problems they have. And so we tied up with MyTech to kind of create a partnership with them on the capstone program of MQIM. So this was another unique feature that we had in this program that we don't have in any of our other programs. The program overall was doing quite well. I mean, we started 3 years ago, and then initially it was a small-sized, I guess, cohort. The main reason is that the pricing of the program is kind of high by New Brunswick standards. In the second year, we picked up quite a bit. I mean, we actually had doubled the size of the cohort. But then we had COVID. And with COVID, we started facing different challenges because, most of the interest in this program is still from international students.
Right.
And, it was very difficult to have international students take this entire program online in their countries with no prospect of being able to come to Canada and work, which is a big attraction for them. So this year has been challenging for the program, but we are getting very strong applications even for the fall term. And if, for example, the university is able to open up as we hear, and we are able to bring students in, I'm very hopeful that the program will pick up and really continue.
It's a really
upward
smart
trajectory.
program. It's a smart way to have value out in industry for our graduates. So I hope it comes back full force and maybe doubles again.
Looking really hoping so. But the good thing is that the folks in West Coast still have strong faith in the
Right.
program. They're actually participating quite heavily in teaching several of the courses.
Yeah.
We are getting interest from industry to create problems and so forth. We just need to have more students to make it viable.
I think our association president, Pete Satterwright, is probably involved in that. Is that? I know he teaches.
Pete Satterwright has been involved, not directly in this program,
Yeah.
but he's taught in our MBA program.
Yeah, I was just thinking he works for VESCOR, so it was.
But he does work
yeah,
with VESCOR,
yeah, okay,
right.
great. So Carol, one of the tasks we've given you today is representing our alumni, and so our alumni have submitted some questions to us that they were hoping to be asked. I'm wondering if you have any for Angelisa.
How did you come to be at UNB?
Being at UNB was a decision which I deliberately sought out. And why that is, because UNB is based out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, and I do not have any family here. And in India, I think I have a huge family. They're spread all over the world. And it's just New Brunswick that we don't have any person. And this was something which was amazing to me because it's the sense of freedom which I felt when I landed here and I got to choose my family, and I now can happily and proudly say that I have family here. And most of them include faculty from UNB, my classmates, my friends. In fact, one of the closest friends I have was my very first Airbnb host, and she was the mother figure I needed here. UNB, also because of its faculty, it's been there since 1700s, I want to say.
Yep.
So that, of course, the setting, the university in itself, it's so beautiful. It's a pity we couldn't enjoy it last summer and this summer just because of the pandemic. But yeah, and Canada has been very welcoming. Fredericton, for that matter, has been super welcoming. People are so nice. Affordable living, quality of life, opportunities, avenues which I could not have maybe explored in India, but I got a chance to do it here. The culture shock was real, but I embraced it because of the support of the people, and everything was smooth for me, for sure.
And you found work and are staying here.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
awesome. How did COVID affect your experience?
It was difficult, for sure, because I had the opportunity for being in in-person classes during the fall of 2019 and halfway through the winter of 2020. And that's when COVID hit, like Dev rightly said, March. So the transition was obviously overwhelming, would be the word. It was not something we all wanted, obviously. it was difficult, but I was surprised to see how well students and staff adjusted to it, and the faculty, the turnaround time was so great because they adapted it to it so well. When classes and exams were to happen in person, everything just switched and we were doing them online. So it was amazing, and the support we got from the faculty, be it in terms of mental health or taking some time off, or having questions, or just that emotional support from the professors was also so endearing. So all of that made it, I won't say smooth completely, but I think the silver lining was that we always knew that all of us were in this together and we would see it through. So I'm really happy with that.
So all of your classes and everything, your exams were all online, or?
Yes, we
Wow.
transitioned it online, and it was interesting to, obviously our writing speed was okay, but our typing speed obviously got better, and we learned and picked up new skills like Teams. I've heard so many different views on how to navigate through Teams. Is Zoom better? Is Teams better? But now we all have learned so much, and I would say we are gurus on Microsoft Teams and Zoom. So yeah, for sure, it's been great.
Well, it's a hopefully once in a lifetime experience we're all experiencing now, and soon we'll hopefully be out of it. So, how has your family felt? They must have not been excited about you being so far away and not able to come see you, or you see them. Or...
Yes, I mean that was hard, but thankfully we had technology and video calls connecting us, so that's been good for sure. And I live in a joint family, so my grandparents had to see me, my uncles and aunts had to see me, so that was easy. But nobody expected that I wouldn't go back to India for the next 2 years once this saw me off in 2019. So it wasn't all that hunky-dory. They were excited. I think my sister, I have 2 younger siblings, and they were super excited when they sent me off, and they said, well, we'll come to see you at your graduation, but they are still seeing me. They will be. It's just, it'll be virtual. But yeah, it's been okay, I would say. But yeah, technology, video calls have made it easier for sure.
It's interesting to hear you talk too, Angelisa. I always reflect on how we've sort of catapulted forward as a society with our comfort level with technology, and so hearing that you've already recognized how important that is, that those are just skills that you would have had to sort of fumble along with in your work life after university, but now you know them inside out. So, and that's gonna, even though we're all excited to get back to being in person, those things aren't going away. It's really, as I said, sort of catapulted us forward into a different world. So, Dev, we talked a little bit about the Apex Business Challenge, but there's also the Data Challenge. I'm wondering if you can talk about that a little bit. There's like a data visualization, or I don't actually know much about it, so I'm interested to hear too. Wondering if you can talk about it and how it ties back to classroom learning.
So actually, this is also tied to another area that we're moving into, and that's the area of data analytics. Mm-hmm. It's kind of related to the area where I think Angelisa will also be going to Tech Impact, and Kathy Simpson is a big supporter of a program like this. Mm-hmm. So we started with one course called Data Visualization. And we found that the course gained a lot of traction, not just with the students, but also within the community, because there was a lot of demand for studies where you actually use data to glean information, to get insights, and to even help policy making. So the data visualization competition was sort of created around the data visualization course that we had created. And it went through a number of iterations. For example, when we started, they had started where, all the mayors of different cities were invited to provide just data from different cities, and the students would compete using that data to provide insights for policy-making decisions. So that's how it started off. But then we found that a lot of employers started coming to just participate in this, and a lot of students from different faculties also started participating in it. So this year, for example, because of the online environment, that provided another opportunity to scale up this competition. And what they decided was that they would create 3 different tracks. They would have, of course, the data visualization track that we have been having for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years now. And in this track this year, they used kind of, data from the United Nations, government data, to try and get insights into sustainability issues. So that was kind of the theme of the competition for the data visualization round. And then there was also the analytics piece, because what we find is that analytics is now common not just to the analytics program that we have created. I should mention that we have just recently also created a concentration involving 4 or 5 different courses in the MBA on analytics.
Wow, that's great.
Analytics. So, but it not only kind of involves those kinds of courses, but also the MQIM program has a big analytics component. So you could kind of build a finance track. So that's where we had a separate segment involving analytics, where different disciplines could be involved. I mean, down the road, for example, I can visualize in the accounting profession, there's a huge demand now for audit analytics, And so if we are able to create a course on that, we could embed that into the competition as well. So that was another track we created. And the third was something we call Data Sprint, which is like a hackathon. It's like just a fun thing. So that again seems to have generated a lot of excitement. What we find is that students who participate in this competition, they get these networking opportunities, and a lot of our students have actually gotten job offers right in the competition itself. So we find that to be very, very useful. And we find that if we are able to kind of create these competitions around courses, that just enhances the experiential scope of the courses.
Absolutely. It's just another incredible example of the work that's happening in the faculty. It makes me really proud to be an alumna from the faculty, to hear you talk about all these new programs. It's great to hear about. Carol, do you have questions that our alumni submitted for Dev?
So in terms of recruiting of international students and recruiting and care of international students, what kinds of comments could you make on that? Because I would see that, when I was going to university, they were, if they were from Montreal, they were from away, So you didn't have an opportunity to interact with students from other countries, which is in and of itself a growing and a good experience to have.
As a faculty, what do we do? I should mention that, we have a very international faculty, at least from 11 different countries, although it seems to have been much more when you were 31. And they have a pretty, eclectic international mindset in that sense. And that, I believe, plays a role in the sense that they've always tried to provide a supportive environment for the students when the students come. We also have a pretty strong mix of staff members who are from different countries. And that has also kind of helped in a big way. Now, in terms of what really we are trying to achieve is creating more of these mentoring opportunities for the students. And one way to do that is to have alumni more engaged, especially those alumni who are settling in Fredericton. A lot of our international students, which is the positive side, we find now are not going away. They are trying to find ways to stay here. And a lot of them we really want to give back, because I think they may have had a positive experience with us and they just want to give back. So if we are able to create, even that environment involving the alumni, our own faculty, fellow students, that mentoring piece, I think, is really important. The other aspect, of course, is to try and find funding opportunities, because, a lot of our students, they, as you rightly said, they're coming in paying very high tuition. The international fee differential is going up, and it's important to be able to find those funding opportunities. That's a constant challenge for us, and that is a particularly important piece for me, I feel, to be able to try and find those opportunities for the students. I think that if we can do that, that'll certainly, help sustain them when they come here. Overall, I think we are fortunate to also be in Fredericton, where Angelisa mentioned. The community is, by and large, very welcoming. It's a small community, but it's also a very cohesive community in that sense. So I would say that, try to take advantage of the ecosystem, the larger ecosystem, or also whatever resources we can muster from within the faculty to try and create that supportive environment.
So how many, or what, just pull a figure out of the air is fine with me, but how many stay in Canada of the international students that?
I would think the overwhelming majority do, because Canada is actually a very big draw, a very big attraction to a lot of international students.
So half of the ones that stay in Canada stay in New Brunswick? I'm very good at pulling figures out of the air, can you tell?
I would doubt whether half still stay in New Brunswick because, for example, we graduate about, actually, if you take into account the undergraduate and the graduate, definitely more than half stay in New Brunswick.
Yeah.
International students, I'm talking about.
International, yes. Yeah. So there again, the opportunities are definitely widening for the international students in the province. But at the end of the day, for example, those who specialize in finance or in investments, they don't have too many opportunities, and they would probably move to a place like Toronto or Calgary or,
So where are your students finding jobs? Somebody asks.
In the province, certainly, the big employers like Irving's or McCain's, those are obvious examples. But then depending on the specialization. So we have a very strong tie-up with the professional accounting bodies. And a lot of our students just get employment in the accounting firms here. But they also get jobs within the government, in different sectors. The pension plan here, Westcore, for example, my understanding is that a real significant number of their employees are our graduates. In addition, there are so many startups that are now sort of coming up. And because our faculty has been involved in the sort of startup programs and so forth, a lot of our graduates are getting jobs in the startup community. As different, I guess, areas of expertise start spawning, and if we try to sort of provide opportunities for our students there, they will gain more opportunities there. Like Angelisa is a classic example of joining a company called Tech Impact, which probably wasn't there a few years ago. So these kinds of opportunities are also sort of proving to be very valuable.
The next question from the other alumni: how have industry partnerships enhanced your programs? That's a really touchy subject. I remember there was a real big concern about selling out to industry at one point at the university. I think they've got over that.
Yeah, maybe not as much in the business faculty.
Well, no, even in the business faculty there was.
Well, yeah, actually, when I joined the faculty, that was pretty much the mindset,
Yeah.
There was this big divide between academia and industry, and each did their own thing.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that divide is changing. I mean, there's just much more realization that academia cannot really operate in silos. I mean, they have to be sort of involved in industry. And just to give you an example, we are seeking accreditation with a pretty, well-known accrediting body called CSB International. They are an American-based body, but they are global, and they accredit roughly about 5 or 6% of business schools worldwide. So we are sort of seeking accreditation with them. And they also nowadays emphasize this strong industry, academic interface. I personally believe that it is absolutely essential to embed more industry into academic thinking, simply because, industry practitioners also are able to bring in to the classroom their perspectives on the latest, developments in industry and practice. Because they're actually practicing, using those kinds of developments. So that plays a very important role. In our faculty, we've had some very strong relationships. Like over time, we built relationships with Westcore. We have, for example, we offer a course called Venture Assessment, which is being offered for the last 3 years in partnership with New Brunswick Innovation Foundation. And it's a course where students basically learn to do due diligence acting as venture capitalists in the classroom. And that course has also been extremely successful. So that's another example of an industry partnership where we have very strong ties with NBIF. We have very strong ties with Planet Hatch, with Ignite. In fact, many of those first-year business planning and entrepreneurship courses that I was talking about are actually taught by people from Planet Hatch. And of course, we have a very strong tie-up with the Chamber of Commerce here, for example. I personally think that we will only be expanding the scope of industry participation because it simply just enriches the programs.
Yeah.
One final question I cannot leave without asking, what percentage of your faculty and students are female now?
Students, I think, again, I wish I had brought these stats with me, but I know for sure that in our BBA program, the majority of students are now female. But I don't know the exact percentage. In the MBA program, I don't know, it's probably not as much. But again, sizable numbers are coming up, and they're taking on leadership roles. Angelisa, for example, she's graduating, but she was president of our MBA Society,
And the faculty?
Now, in the faculty, the numbers have gone up, but again, we are, I would say, still about 33% or so, roughly. So it's that's something that needs to be worked upon, but yeah.
But it needs to be worked on not just from a recruitment and faculty perspective, but having women who choose to go down the PhD path and to choose, you know what I mean?
That's right.
It's having the people there to...
Exactly.
Yeah.
I should mention, though, that, and just to your point, I do not see resistance to hiring women at all at the faculty level nowadays. People just look for meritorious candidates. And if there is a strong meritorious candidate as a woman, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we also have a provision in our collective agreement now where, when you're choosing between two candidates, and if a person happens to be, say, of
equity-seeking group.
The equity-seeking group, then typically, you do sort of give some preference to that group.
Yeah.
All else equal, of course.
Yeah. Well, Angelisa, we're going to move over to some questions for you now. Interesting. There were so many times when Dev was speaking where I was wondering what you were thinking and what the experience was from a student perspective. So I'm happy to be able to do that now. So you, as we've mentioned, you came here from India, your first time outside of India, and somehow ended up being the president of the MBA Society. Can you tell us a bit about what made you get involved and what your experience was doing that?
Sure. So I think since childhood, I've always loved taking initiative, and be it in school, being a prefect, during my undergrad, being a part of the core team in the commerce department, and my first year at UNB, as an MBA student, I was the first year rep. So being the president was only natural, and I enjoy having a seat on the table, and that I think is in accordance with women's studies and women leadership roles and all of that. So it's amazing to actually speak for people and be an enabler to do so. And I've always loved having impact and making contributions to each environment I go to, and having that perspective with interacting with the faculty, be it in faculty council meetings, or having those relationships and associations with students, classmates, juniors, alumni, has given me such a holistic and comprehensive perspective and mindset to, make those decisions. So during my term as a president and as a rep, as a student, as a proud alumni, I think I have made lovely bonds, and I've had some great, lovely, nurturing friendships over time. So I think it was a very easy transition for me to be want the presidency and have a lovely council, faculty support, and great interaction, for sure.
Well, it's certainly exciting to me now to welcome you to the alumni family, knowing that you'll probably continue those leadership roles moving into the future. So I'll give you a few years off, and then we'll find a way to recruit you to volunteer with us. So, so as a 2021 graduate, I know that we've referenced it a few times, but can you tell us a little bit about what's in your future, maybe immediately, and then if there's also something further down the line that you're looking forward to?
Sure. So I'm thrilled to actually share that I did graduate in May, early May, and was fortunate enough to have landed a job with Tech Impact as a program manager under the amazing mentorship of Kathy Simpson, who I had the opportunity and the privilege to work through one of UNB's initiative called the Catalyst Program. This was an internship I did over the summer. Unfortunately, it was online just because that's when COVID hit. So I was working with 4 different New Brunswick companies over the summer with 2 undergraduate students. And we were working on these all wonderful local businesses. Mostly the overall, I think, high-level idea of it was for them to be able to transition to the online environment. And one of the projects was that of Kathy's. And I had a great experience. She is a great mentor. Again, women in leadership is one of her burning concerns, and she takes on each initiative and opportunity to kind of promote women in leadership, businesses, support. So towards the end of my MBA journey, she reached out and said like, hey, what are your plans after graduation? And I said, well, I'm looking for jobs. So she had this wonderful opportunity for me as a program manager on this project, which I've recently taken up. And we hope to launch it during fall. So it's a curated online community where all the IT professionals and business leaders would come and pitch in to the bigger aim is to kind of promote economic development and solve the problem of deficit of New Brunswick. And if we can make some impact, I would be super happy. And I am really happy to be associated with a company called Tech Impact, which very well aligns with what I want to do in life. So yeah, I think I can't thank UNB enough for getting me to places and being a part of my journey here. So yeah.
That's really incredible to hear, and that idea of a digital transformation for the province aligns really well too with some of the strategic things we have going on at the university. So I'm sure we'll be seeing lots of you in your new role and into the future. I have to say it's really inspiring, having been 20 years since I graduated. It's really inspiring to sit with a student and hear about the wonderful things you're doing and the things you hope to do in the future. So really appreciate you taking time to be with us today. And I'm really, congratulations on your job. That's exciting.
Thank you so much.
So it's hard to believe the time went by so fast. I could talk with all of you all day. Maybe we will after we stop the cameras, but it's been a little over an hour, so we're going to wrap up. But before we do, I just wanted to quickly ask if each of you can just reflect from your different perspectives on what the best part of being a part of the UNB family has been for you. So maybe we'll start with Carol.
Oh, darn. Well, it's just home. I mean, I've participated in so many different ways, from being a student to being on faculty to being on the board to being with the alumni. It's just part of what my life is in Fredericton. It's just part of who I am.
Yeah, I agree. I would say the same answer. And Angelisa?
I could actually give 3 favorites or top.
Go ahead.
So one is definitely experiential learning, just because I had the opportunity of working with 2 startup companies during my term at UNB MBA. So one was through new venture creation and entrepreneurship, which was in collaboration with the accelerator program at Planet Hatch. Mm-hmm. And I had the opportunity of working with 321.fun, which was, the idea was to create content for learning maths and making it easier for neurodiverse children to pick it up easier.
I think another alumnus was involved in that.
Yes,
yeah,
Ben.
Ben, yeah.
Yes. So we helped him with the business plan and all of that during the course. So that was great. So I am super for the experiential learning emphasis which UNB is taking up. I think it's a great initiative. And the second one was applied integrative studies, the classes were taken by Ray Fitzpatrick, who is again a member of NBIF. And during that time, I had the opportunity to work with 2 different companies and with so many of my classmates when we learned so much about work etiquettes, work ethics, coordination, teamwork. All of that was great. So experiential learning for one, for sure. The second best part about UNB is, I think, the support you have. Like Carol said, I think it'll be home for me. Even though, I mean, wherever I go, I have multiple homes now across the world. So I'm really proud that I can call UNB as a new extended family that I chose. And, you know, I've always got that support. And finally, I think I just want to emphasize on my learning during my independent course, study course, which I did under the supervision of Dr. David Ford. Yeah. And my chosen topic was women in leadership. And I think that has helped me so much to take more initiative and just ask what I want and not be like coy and shy about it. So I think that's just top 3 favorite moments and best parts about UNB for me.
Well, I loved hearing all the different UNBers that you sort of dropped their names in there. It's great for me to hear how different people are influencing the student experience. That was wonderful to hear. Recognized all the names in there. So, Dev, what about you? You've been with us for 30 years now. Wow.
So it's, as Carol mentioned, it's home for me, right? It's very much home. And I was just, when you asked the question, I started reflecting a little bit. And I moved here from the US. And, when we first came, we were for a campus interview. I had no idea where I was coming. And I just drove on Route 95 and straight down. And what struck me was how picturesque the place was. It was so scenic. So anyway, we sort of came here, and it's been really wonderful ever since, simply because the university has always been, even at that time, very welcoming to me. And the students have always been sort of a real joy to teach over the years. And the larger ecosystem, the community here is so good in Fredericton. Yeah. So I would say that UNB has pretty much given me most of what I have in life. I'm really also so happy that, over the years we have alumni such as Carol and Angelisa who also call UNB home. So in other words, we just continue to grow our family in that sense, right? I would say that pretty much any academic success that I may have had or any professional success, I owe a lot of it to UNB.
Yeah. I couldn't say any of it any better than the 3 of you did, so I'll skip the question for myself, except to say that I also now consider UNB home. And after having grown up in the military and not really having a home, it means a lot to me to be able to have a place that I call home. So thank you so much. I really could have talked to you all day. I know that we did talk way longer than we planned as it was, but I really enjoyed the conversation. So for our alumni who joined us today, I really hope that you enjoyed hearing a little bit about the Faculty of Management. If you attended the faculty in the 70s or 80s, I hope that you enjoyed hearing about how much has changed, but how the sort of DNA of that supportive campus environment is still the same. And if you graduated a little bit more recently, I hope that you enjoyed hearing that some of those traditions and the things that we valued as students at that time are still happening. If there were any questions that you would have asked had you been able to be here in person, I do encourage you to send an email to alumni@unb.ca. If it's something I can answer, I will. And if we need Dev's help, we'll reach out to him to get an answer. And I really do hope that sometime very soon we'll be able to welcome all of you back to campus, to see the beautiful campus that we've mentioned a number of times, and just to welcome you back home. So we're hoping to be able to do that very soon, to be able to see you in person soon. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.